Hi everyone, Katja here. Welcome or welcome back. And as always, this video is divided into chapters so that you can pick out the genre that you want to dive straight into, be that translated fiction, fantasy, historical fiction, or something else. You can even skip this introduction if you like. But if you are sticking around, here's a quick explanation of where I've been on my mini recording break. Now, it was due to a flare up. It wasn't because I had a lovely holiday somewhere. As some of you know, I've got endometriosis, and it's a stage 4 kind that for some people causes really unpleasant symptoms, including chronic pain. So that's what happened, and the new medication I'm on caused severe brain fog. Was putting things into the fridge that don't belong there and wearing some of my clothes inside out. Thankfully, mostly just the cardigan. But my body's adjusted to the meds and the brain fog is clearing, so I'm ready to dive into my recent reads with you. And these are from my wrap ups for March, April, and May. Have you got your favorite drink next to you? I do. I have coffee with a dash of milk and no sugar. So let's get started. First up, we have translated fiction. I read Banana Yoshimoto's book or novella, The Premonition, which is translated from Japanese, and it is just beautifully written. She wrote Kitchen, so if you've read that and you like that style, you'll enjoy this. It looks at love, loss, and the supernatural, just little hints of the supernatural. Through her lyrical prose and the emotional depth that she puts into her books, Yoshimoto captures this fleeting nature of happiness and the shadows of premonition in everyday life. We follow Yayoi, who lives with her perfect, loving family but is haunted by forgotten memories of her past. Taking a break with her eccentric aunt Yukino, she slowly rediscovers lost memories, challenging everything she knows about her past. It has a haunting, evocative quality that lingers long after the last page, not first, last page. So then we have What You're Looking For is in the Library, also translated from Japanese by Michiko Ayoma. And this is captivating. It's got such a nice, cozy feel. It's a set of short stories that come together thanks to the enigmatic librarian Sayuri Komachi, who guides 5 individuals at life's crossroads towards self discovery. From a restless retail agent to a retired salaryman seeking purpose, we see how the right book can illuminate the path forward when it reaches you at the right time. It's a really heartwarming narrative, and it celebrates the magic of literature and the profound impact of libraries as sanctuaries of hope and renewal, as well as a reminder of reading's transformative power. So, I would highly recommend it as well for people who enjoyed Before the Coffee Gets Cold, because it's got that sort of vibe. Then we go on to 2 Thai books by the same author, Prabda Yoon. First, The Sad Part Was, and this is a collection of short stories that blends humor and melancholy, and it has a poignancy to it. A little bit of surrealism, but it makes you think of family and neighbors and grandparents, that sort of thing. And it looks at aspects of Thai society, exploring themes of love, loss, and the absurdity of life. Sharp wit, keen observations, that's what the narrative feels like. But totally avoid this if you don't like open ended narratives and stories that are open to different interpretations. But if that's your sort of thing, I think this is a good starting point for discovering one of Thailand's most renowned authors, an artist, a book cover designer, screenwriter, and he's so much more. Then I read his Moving Parts, which is another short story collection and very much has his same writing style, but different because you got the surrealism, you got the witty observations and everything. But what you have is less of that poignancy and more grittiness. You're taken into Bangkok where you meet a couple who stumble across a dead body and how that discovery impacts their relationship going forward. You meet a late teenage, but still teenage prostitute who brings an adult man to tears. And it's difficult to describe, but Very, very accomplished. Again, very open to interpretation at the end. So if that's not your thing, you won't enjoy it. But if you do like lyrical prose and short stories, I think that Prabdayun offers a lot for you to unpick and reflect on. I definitely want to read more Thai fiction, so if you've got any Thai authors that you would recommend, let me know in the comments. Then we go on to fantasy. The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. I found this really imaginative. It's such an adventure following Irene, a librarian spy, navigating alternate realities. This skillfully blends Regency, magic, and steampunk elements to create such a detailed world. Irene, the main character, is a resourceful person whose journey is absolutely thrilling. The plot is promising, especially for what it means for the rest of the series. And the twists in this particular book kept me engaged from start to finish. It's a unique premise and I thought really well executed. Um, Definitely one I would recommend to anyone who's a fan of parallel worlds. And I'm looking forward to picking up the next book in the Invisible Library series. Then we have another series, Jade War by Fonda Lee, and this is a sequel expanding the epic Greenbone saga with intense family dynamics and high stakes action. Lee's world building and character development are just exceptional, drawing us deeper into the intricate web of clan conflict, magic powered martial arts, and global politics. There's such a balance between the action scenes and the emotional depth. Loved it. I was hooked by the themes of loyalty, power, and the cost of ambition, which I explored with great nuance. Then we get on to Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, which is a captivating start to Bardugo's dark academia series, featuring Alex Stern. It has a unique magic system and a strong, flawed main character. It blends mystery and fantasy together really seamlessly and immersed me in this dark and intriguing world. Alex, original name Galaxy, is really resilient and has a compelling growth arc. The supporting characters as well are fascinating. We got enigmatic Darlington, kind hearted Dawes. It adds to the depth of the narrative. And its descriptive writing, it's really well structured in terms of the plot, and its twists and turns kept me hooked. The dual timeline is also really effective. It reveals the character backstories and the secrets of the secret societies. I don't know if there's a better way of saying secrets of secret societies, but anyway, it all culminates in a shocking and really satisfying ending. What I don't think worked that well for me is the several flashbacks into Alex's harrowing past. It felt like we went back far too often for it to be necessary for the plot to progress. And because it is traumatic, I felt it was a little much. Then we have Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House. So Lee Bardugo continues the story. There's a lot of new elements, but it broadens this world. It strikes a better balance as well in revisiting the traumatic scenes from Alex's past, making it an even better read in my mind, which is unusual. I don't usually like sequels more. Now, the complex characters that she builds really kept me interested, and it has a gripping plot. It is a lot darker than what I usually read, and the secret part of Yale is vividly portrayed as somewhere really arcane, and that these arcane practices is what contributes to a lot of the elite's success in the wider world, unbeknownst to us. So, this book delves into the darker and more dangerous aspects of the magic system that we came to understand in the first book, and we get more of the characters' struggles. It's really thrilling, bordering on horror, and I did find it totally satisfying. It also suggests that as the series progresses, there will start to be scenes of a more sexual nature. I think this is implied by a certain gold appendage. And that's not to say that there weren't scenes before in books one and this book, but I think it's going towards something really steamy. Yeah. Then we have the Dragon's Blade trilogy by Michael R. Miller, an epic fantasy with a fresh take on magic. and Dragons. Now, I got this as a combined trilogy audiobook because I had one credit and I saw that there was a combined version, and I'd highly recommend getting that because it feels very much like one book in three parts. I would have struggled to have it as three separate books because I felt that there was a pacing issue with the story. I think it could have been faster in certain parts, but despite my quibble about the pacing, this book has a wonderfully fresh take on dragons and magic, and it has a world building magic system that is imaginative, character arcs that are satisfying, and it is, for the action parts, really immersive. So it was enjoyable at the end. But like I say, if it was in three books, I would probably have put down book one, and then if I was distracted and not picking up book two, it's one of those series where you could have a long gap before you remember to go back to the series. So having it in one was definitely beneficial for me. Now we go on to some more light-hearted fantasy with sprinkles and sea serpents. The Sugar Shack Witch Mysteries by Danielle Garrett. Fun, light-hearted, cozy mystery, magical twist. We've got Rosella Ella Midnight returning home to the magical community of Winterspell Lake after a rough patch in her life in the wider world with non magical people. I thought the characters are likable, the plot's enjoyable, if a bit predictable. Ella's journey of self discovery and a quest to solve the mystery of four missing girls in the neighborhood that is attributed to a man eating sea serpent is really engaging. And rather than straying from the cozy mystery genre, these abductions really added depth to the narrative. Then we have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen, which is fantasy romance. It features Freya, a shield maiden with magical powers, bound in an unwanted marriage and dreaming of becoming a warrior. Her life changes when she is betrayed and forced to reveal her magic. The plot is full of twists and turns, with well developed characters, rich world building inspired by Norse mythology. The romance between Freya and Bjorn, the Jarl's son, is compelling, and there's good chemistry and banter. However, I found some of the plot twists predictable, and the start was a little bit of a tell in terms of the background rather than showing us. So it felt almost like info dumping, not quite, but there's a lot of information given to you rather than it being built up slowly. So I think it's a good read for current fans of Danielle Jensen, but if you're new to her work, I recommend starting with the Bridge Kingdom books first because that has a much better writing flow. That said, I am going to continue on with the series. I'm curious to see where it goes. Then, science fiction. We've got Exit Black by Joe Pitkin, which aims to captivate us with action packed science fiction. It is set in the Imperium, a former orbiting laboratory, now a space hotel. The story follows Dr. Chloe Bonilla, a biophysicist who fights against terrorists threatening her and wealthy tourists. The novel has a strong premise. It delivers definitely on action and suspense, but for me, it loses pace now and then. And also, as a character driven reader, I struggled to connect with any of the characters, and that dampened my investment. Despite this, Exit Black showcases Pitkin's creativity and ability to tackle social critique really well and offers an adventurous narrative with an ambitious theme, and the ending I thought was really well executed. Station Eternity by Maura Lafferty. Now, I did a dedicated video review for this, so I'll keep it brief and say that it does this wonderful thing of blending science fiction with mystery. So it was like Murder She Wrote in space. We're looking at Mallory, an Earth woman who attracts murders wherever she goes. Seeking refuge, she moves to a space station inhabited by a diverse array of aliens. I loved how Lafferty skillfully weaves a tale of intrigue, identity, and the quest for peace in an often chaotic universe. It's got a unique setting, well crafted plot, and the world building is brilliant, creating a richly detailed space station that feels otherworldly yet familiar. The writing is engaging, the characters are well developed, and it just made me interested or invested in their fates going forward with the series. It sets a strong foundation for the following books. Now, that said, I found the sequel a tiny bit of a letdown. It is it is a solid sequel. Let me not mislead you. It's a solid sequel, but it didn't feel as good as the first. It explores the growing tensions on a non-Earth planet, expanding the scope and complexity of the world, which I liked. But despite the engaging plot and strong world building, it doesn't have the smooth flow of the first book. The development, though, of Mallory's character is a highlight as her journey becomes more complex and layered, which I loved. So it remains entertaining, setting up exciting possibilities for future installments. And I'm curious to see if book three sort of like recovers the momentum and flow for me. Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis is an engaging and unique space opera set aboard the luxury spaceship Grand Abiona Hotel. Now, I have for years been wondering, there's this series from the 1980s, kind of like how Mur Lafferty did the Murder She Wrote idea in space for her Mid-Solar Murders, which is also a play on Midsummer Murders. This concept of the hotel in space, I've always wondered why someone doesn't do a sort of reimagining of the 1980s series Hotel, but in space, following the lives of the guests and the staff. And this does that, but obviously in a unique way. But I really liked that element. So the moment that I saw it advertised, I was like, I have to read this. In fact, I put it on my most anticipated sci-fi for 2024 list. Now, it's not my favorite science fiction novel that I've read this year, but it's really good. The story centers on Carl, the hotel manager, whose fate is closely linked to the Abiona. And the characters like Wadi, Dunk, and Uli add depth with their colorful backstories. The novel really explores themes of inequality and that echoes our real world wealth gaps. The frequent perspective shifts were something that I didn't like. It initially was really jarring, but so I set the book aside because, like I said, I had a brain fog and I have a little bit of it still. So I picked it up when I could concentrate better, and then I found it really immersive and I liked the thought provoking conclusion. Then we get on to historical fiction. 7 books in this. This is all from Matthew Shardlake series by C.J. Sansom. And I did a write-up on this. So there's a separate video, so I won't go into it too much. Suffice to say, the 7 books, Sansom really weaves intricate plots, vivid historical detail, and deeply developed characters to create a really immersive reading experience. You feel as though you're in the Tudor times, following Matthew Shardlake, a hunchbacked lawyer detective in the 1500s, whose keen intellect and unwavering sense of justice drive him to solve some of the era's most complex and dangerous cases. His character is so richly developed, showcasing a blend of moral integrity, personal vulnerability, and resilience that makes him a compelling protagonist. His physical deformity, often a source of discrimination, is handled with sensitivity and depth, adding layers to his interactions and personal struggles. There is a TV series adaptation, and I think it's well worth watching. I think some people have a quibble that it's not 100% faithful, but it is faithful to the main message, to the feel, to the tone of these books. So I struggled with episode 1 for reasons that I put on my community tab, like I don't want to diverge too much from this discussion, but I think overall it's really worth it if you've enjoyed these books to have a look at the series as well. So then we go on to historical romance, Akka Body Rippers, because that's what they are, because they're all from Tessa Dare, and that's what she writes. A Night to Surrender. This features Dare's signature writing style, light and entertaining. However, it wasn't my favorite of hers. The characters were far more forgettable than what she usually writes. And my favorite still remains When a Scot Ties the Knot. Then we have Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare, and I think this is more on par with what I'm used to from Tessa Dare. Combines sweetness and whimsy. We follow Izzy Goodnight, an imaginative and spirited heroine who unexpectedly inherits a crumbling castle and meets the brooding, blind Duke of Rothbury. Dare's engaging storytelling and heartwarming warming narrative is complemented by these really endearing characters with sparkling wit and chemistry and laugh out loud moments and emotional depth. I think it's a must read if you love these sort of books. Then we have The Wallflower Wager, which again does really well with the whole whimsy and charm and humor. We follow Lady Penelope Campion, an animal loving lady with a penchant for rescuing strays, and then she gets a neighbor called the Duke of Ruin. When he, Gabriel, moves next door, he threatens to evict her menagerie and sparks fly. So it's really endearing. It's got some hilarious dialogue, and the chemistry between Penny and Gabriel is electric. And the evolving relationship is really satisfying. This is just such light-hearted silliness, and the parrot nearly stole the show. So, yeah, I'd recommend the last two. Not so much the first one, which I hardly talked about because I just didn't think it was worth it. But I still will try the other books in that series. So it's from the Spindle Cove series. Anyway, on to the next genre, non-fiction. So I've read 7 books in the genre, but I'll only discuss one of them. That's because 6 of the ones that I read were allocated to me as a BookTube prize judge, so I'm going to do a separate video for those. The announcement of the ones that have gone through happened just yesterday at 5 p.m. My favorite one didn't go through, which is such a shame, but anyway, I'll post a dedicated review about them. They are the books from the nonfiction group C, and they are Built from the Fire, the epic story of Tulsa's Greenwood District, America's Black Wall Street by Victor Lucassen. Crossings, How Road Ecology is Shaping the Future of Our Planet by Ben Goldfarb. Master, Slave, Husband, Wife, An Epic Journey from Slavery to Freedom by Il-Yon Wu. What an Owl Knows, The New Science of the World's Most Enigmatic Birds by Jennifer Ackerman. Doppelganger, A Trip into the Mirror World by Naomi Klein. A Memoir of My Former Self, A Life in Writing by Hilary Mantel. Now, the nonfiction book that I can share with you right now that isn't part of the BookTube Prize is Black Box by Shiori Ito. It is a powerful memoir of Ito's fight for justice in the face of sexual assault. Her account and the subsequent legal battle highlight the systemic challenges faced by survivors of sexual violence, in this case specifically in Japan. And the memoir is both a personal testament as well as a call for societal change. And following her lengthy court case, recent legislative changes have occurred in Japan, including raising the age of consent from 13 to 16, which, yeah, definitely watch the dedicated book review if you're curious about what other legislative changes are and about the book. Then we go on to literary fiction with Dry Spells, which is a compelling debut weaving together family secrets, cultural identity, and personal growth against the backdrop of a drought-stricken Mumbai. The story follows Shamala, a young woman navigating life and love after moving from LA to her ancestral home in India, Mumbai. Now, the writing style is really atmospheric and vivid. The narrative really drew me into the bustling streets of Mumbai and the quiet tensions within Shamala's family. That said, I had a minor quibble about Secret that I felt was really anticlimactic by the time we get to the reveal. So we'll put that aside. I loved everything else. The character development in particular, it all adds depth, highlighting themes of individuality versus societal expectations. It's an evocative prose. It transported me to The India of not just the early 2000s, which was when the main narrative is, but also to the flashbacks in the 1960s and 70s. Highly recommend. I think it's a really strong debut novel. Then we go on to Lessons in Chemistry, and this is a brilliant, witty, and empowering novel. Oh, hang on. Written by Bonnie Gamas, set in the 1960s following Elizabeth Zott, a fiercely independent, hugely intelligent chemist who challenges societal norms. It stands out for its sharp writing and unforgettable characters. Now, Elizabeth's determination to succeed in a male dominated field is inspiring and thought provoking, and the book deftly explores themes of gender equality, scientific discovery, and personal resilience. And my book club absolutely loved it. Every single person who read it. So it's very unusual for that to happen. We usually have different tastes. Then we have James by Percival Everett, reimagining Mark Twain's classic The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, the enslaved man. Everett enriches the original story by highlighting untold stories and unseen moments, providing a deeper understanding of Jim's experiences of those events. It stands well on its own. You don't need to have read Twain's original story to enjoy it, but if you have, or if you do, it definitely enhances the appreciation of Everett's perspective. He diverges from and expands the source material, challenging established norms and stereotypes within the literary and cultural landscape, making it such an insightful read. Then we have The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbary, and this explores the intersecting lives of Renee, a reclusive concierge, and Paloma, a precocious young tenant. I have mentioned this one in my video on favorite older protagonists because that's what Renee became. I love this. It's such a beautiful novel. It looks at beauty, art, the simplicity in the complexity of life, and also how we can find connection in unexpected places with others across social divides. It's just a wonderfully profound story and left a lasting impression on me. Then we have The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colvin. It's a heartwarming story about Nina, a librarian who loses her city job and decides to start a new life by opening a bookshop in a van in the Scottish Highlands in what feels like in the middle of nowhere. I liked the story's touches of humor. Most of the characters felt genuine, and the Scottish setting definitely added charm. It's an uplifting, well structured tale, but the pacing does feel off at times, and it might lack some depth. Still, it's a comforting read, especially for anyone who's considering leaving city life behind for a rural escape. Then we have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, and this is another book club read. It is heartwarming and really funny. I think some people might find it so sweet that it's a bit saccharine, but thankfully the book club all liked this to varying degrees, but everyone liked it. It's got the quirks of human nature and the connections that we make, revolving around a failed bank robbery that turns into a hostage situation. The storytelling is really clever. It delves into the lives of the hostages and the would be robber. It explores themes of empathy, forgiveness, the complexities of human relationships, and so much more. The characters are really well drawn, and there's some insightful observations. I thought it was delightful and highlights the importance of understanding and connection. But like I say, some people might find it a bit too saccharine. But I thought it was just the right amount of sweet. So then we have The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This is a tale of escape and self discovery with the backdrop of a bookshop in Dublin, touches of magical realism. We've got intertwining lives of Opaline, Martha, and Henry, and some overlapping timelines. Opaline's escape in the 1920s to Paris and to the original Shakespeare and Company bookshop over there add a historical richness before she circles back and comes into London. It looks at real life struggles but mixes in magical realism and the challenging aspects of family dynamics and the impact of alcoholism. The pacing is slow, so that's the downside. But if you don't mind a slow pace, which I don't usually, I do mind it when it's in books that are supposed to be adventurous, but this isn't. This is more slice of life with magical realism. And in that way, I don't mind a slow pace. But if you steer away from slow paced books, this isn't going to be for you, even if you love bookshop themed books. Which if you do and you don't mind the slow pace, let me not labor that too much, but if you do, then this is, going to be worth it. Like a Mule Bringing Ice Cream to the Sun by Sarah Ladipo Manyika. This is another book that I had mentioned for my older female protagonists that I like. It explores aging, memory, and human connection, and Manika's writing is poignant and insightful, and it captures the nuanced experiences of her protagonist, who is a 75-year-old Nigerian woman living in San Francisco. It's got an introspective tone and rich character development, offering a lovely portrayal of the complexities of life and the passage of time. My criticism is it feels way too condensed for my taste, but it had the right amount of introspection. I think there would have been more depth to it if it had been longer. All in all, I still found the writing really noteworthy. So, those are the books I read. What do you think? Have you read any of these books, or are they on your list? Let me know in the comments. And I'm interested in hearing about your recent reads too. Do you have any recommendations from the ones that you found absolutely captivating? Or did one or more not actually meet your expectations? Let me know. So in June, June is now, I'll post discussion videos. I'm planning 2 live shows, and I am finally going to do my second booktuber shout out video that I mentioned I was going to do. I also did a poll recently. Thank you for anyone who's responded to that. I think there's 56 responses, and it was helpful knowing that you love translated fiction the most, followed by science fiction and fantasy, and then contemporary, and then classic fiction, and the rest. So, so predominantly people watch the channel for translated fiction, which is good news for me because for June and July, I had already planned to read a number of translated fiction novels that I want to share with you. And they actually straddle different genres. So they fit translated fiction, but they cover fantasy, science fiction, and contemporary, and more. So that's what's coming up in June and July, alongside my usual reading of all the other genres as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me, and yeah, take care. Bye.